Hey guys! So I haven't shown you any van projects in a while. Before I left on the road trip, Adam and I had a long list of things to work on so my Barry bus would be road ready. This wasn't exactly necessary, but I bought an awning. The only problem was I didn't have brackets to attach it to the van, so I headed over to Adam's house. I had this idea to build brackets in such a way that I could remove the awning from one side of the van and move it over to the other side, so if the sun was being a pain, I wouldn't have to turn the van around. I could just flip the awning to the other side of the van. Now, whenever I hatch an idea for a project and Adam starts going, he never tells me what he's going to do. I'm always left wondering for a while why he's starting here or there, so I'm going to take you along the same journey that I went through. First things first, Adam found a long rusty piece of metal and started grinding down the edges. He then found another long steel pipe and he did the same. After measuring the pipe, he cut out 6 pieces, roughly 4 inches long. He then did the same thing for the rusty rod. After that, he spent some time with the pieces of pipe and really cleaned them up. Then, using his lathe, he started cleaning up the rods, and this took the majority of time. He wanted to get the rods cleaned up enough so they would fit inside the steel pipe. If you don't see where he's going with this, that's okay. It always takes me a while as well. Eventually, all the rods were sanded down and they fit perfectly inside the pipes, but they still needed to be cleaned up. There we go. Adam then grabbed a huge piece of steel and started sanding it down. He started measuring the rough length that he'd need for the next stage of this project, and using his plasma gun, cut a long piece off the thick metal sheet. He then started measuring the metal and cut them into 6 strips. These aren't so important now, but we'll come back to these again soon. After that was done, he went back to his thick metal sheet and cut a much larger piece off the slab. This one he cut into 3 pieces. He tacked them together to get a perfect measurement for where the screws on the awning would have to go. After that, he drilled into the slabs. Once that was done, he detached the pieces from each other and placed the 3 larger metal brackets onto the awning. Once they were in place, he took 3 of the metal pipes and tacked them to those pieces of metal. He then removed them from the awning and MIG welded them into place. These brackets would permanently attach to the awning. All Adam had to do now was finish the other bracket that would be permanently attached to the van, and this system would marry together perfectly. This would allow him to design the same brackets on both sides of the van so the awning could be swapped at any time. At this point, things are going to get pretty tedious. See, because Adam had welded the metal pipes to some steel plates, there was now slag on the inside of the tubes. Due to this, the metal rods would no longer fit inside. So Adam took his drill, attached some sanding paper to it, and ran that through the inside of the pipes to smooth them back out. Not only that, but he then took the metal rods and put them back in his lathe to shave some more metal off the sides, ensuring that those two pieces would marry together without getting stuck forever. I tell you this because this process took a whole day to do, and it's not incredibly important for me to make you watch the entire process. So let's skip ahead to the second set of brackets. Adam took the 6 metal pieces that he had cut initially off that big slab and tacked them together. He then threw them into his milling machine and machined down each side so they were the exact same height and length as each other. This also took a very long time, but they turned out gorgeous. With those metal rectangles completed, it was now time to prepare the metal rods. Adam wanted to make sure the metal rectangles would attach well, so he started throwing the rods into his milling machine and shaved them down until he got a flush fit between the rods and the rectangles. Now, I keep saying this, but this stage of the project took a lot of time. It's amazing how I had the awning. We didn't have to build anything for that, but these brackets were some of the most involved project I'd seen Adam tackle. By the time it was over, it had been 5 days just spent making these brackets. So Adam milled away at each of the rods until finally all of them had been shaped to fit the rectangles. Once they were finally done, it was now time to bond them together. Adam wanted to make sure that these brackets were strong, so I recommended duct tape, but I guess he had a better idea. Using his TIG welder, Adam bonded the metal together, and after a couple hours, all of the rods had finally been matched with the rectangles, and the brackets were almost done. Or so I thought. You see, if you know Adam, he doesn't rush a job. There have been many times where I thought, Adam must be done now. All he has to do is drill a couple holes and it's over, right? But then he starts cutting into the damn pipes that he'd already finished. See, the idea was to get these brackets to marry together in perfect harmony. In the state they were in, they wouldn't have been flush. So Adam measured the new rod brackets that he'd made, applied those measurements to the steel pipes, and went to town. After that, it was time to drill some holes into the rod brackets to finish them off. I didn't realize that Adam was going to do this, but instead of just drilling holes, he actually milled one side up and down and the other side left and right. This would give him some literal wiggle room so he could adjust the brackets in real time while they were on the bus and get them exactly where he needed them to go.
So some of you may be wondering why these are slitted horizontally and vertically like they are. Adam realized that my roof rack is likely not going to be perfectly symmetrical. And these have to fit straight upward to actually hold on to the awning. So he made these slits so that if they are off, we would be able to at least allow for some maneuverability and then tighten it down so that it stays upright and will catch the other end, the receiving end of the bracket.
This is where things are about to get a little complicated. See, if Adam just threw this onto the van, any random guy could walk up, pop the awning off, and walk away with it. Yeah, that'd be a pretty obvious sight, but he wanted to figure out a way to tighten these down so nobody could just pop them off the van when I was away from it. So I'm gonna explain this as clear as I possibly can. What Adam did was he took a long bolt, he slid the bolt through a washer and got about 6 of those to slide down into each of the brackets. Now that you know that, we'll come back to that later. He then took another washer, put a nut inside of it, screwed a bolt down into the nut so it wouldn't get any metal slag in the threads, and welded the nut to the washer. Back to the top side of the bracket, he took yet another washer and welded it to the top side of the bracket. So now there was a washer on the top where that long bolt could slide down. There was a washer on the bottom that had a nut in it where the bolt threads into, and then the bolt also had its own washer around its neck, so then when it slides down and is screwed tightly into the nut, it causes the brackets to press tightly together. This ensures the awning is very secure to the side of the van, and it makes damn sure that nobody's going to be popping it off the roof rack. Now, if I ever want to take the awning off, all I hypothetically have to do is take an Allen key, unscrew the bolts, and then pop the awning off. Now, I say hypothetically, and I will get to that in a bit. Adam spent the entire day working on this mini security system for these little brackets, and the next day, we were going to pop them on the side of the van and see how it worked. And here we are, day 5. Adam marked out where the brackets would go on the awning. He then put the awning brackets in place and locked them down with some washers and nuts. After that, he marked the side of the roof rack where the metal rods would be attached. Once he knew where they'd go, he drilled some holes into the roof rack and bolted down the rods. All that was left was to put the awning up on the roof rack and test it out, and it worked like a dream. Now, I said before that I wanted to be able to switch the awning from one side to the other, and as cool as that would have been, as soon as we got the awning placed up there, the brackets held together like they were welded to each other. Even if the bolts holding the brackets together weren't there, it would be a huge pain in the ass to get this awning off the van. I swear to God, if someone did try to steal my awning, I'd probably just sit a lawn chair down and watch them until they started cussing and gave up. This is how I got my awning, and it's come in handy quite a few times. I'm so glad to have Adam. He's given this van so much love, and every time I drive over to Adam's house, she always scoots away with some new bling. I imagine if my Barry bus had a personality, it would like Adam more than me. I was a little worried about this project. You generally can't trust an awning, there's just something shady about them, but I trust Adam. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed.